Hey, third grade friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. Today we're going to talk about continuing our snowman perspective drawings. And I have a finished example here for you guys, and I just want to point out a couple things as we start to think about our backgrounds. One of the things that you can do is you can, I'm going to show you guys how to add snowflakes. But again, when we're adding snowflakes, the snowflakes that are closer towards the center of the paper are smaller, and as they work their way to the edge, they get bigger. Another thing that you can also do is if you wanted to even put more snowmen in the picture, you can. And I'm going to show you how we do the same thing with the largest circles, and then things getting decreasingly smaller, decreasing in size, getting smaller as we go back. If you wanted to add something like trees, I'm also going to talk to you guys about trees, because we also have to think about the trees are going back into space. So as the top of the tree gets closer to the center, it's going to be very, very thin and small, and as it gets closer to the edge of the paper, the trunk will be wider. Okay, we can draw fancy snowflakes, or I'm going to show you also how to draw just circles for regular snowflakes. And again, if we did circles, the larger circles would be closer to the edge, and as we go back, the circles would get smaller. Another thing we're going to talk about is how we're going to further transform the snowmen's bodies so that they look like forms instead of shapes. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to be using some dark and light values to create a sort of a shadow on the edge of the snowman's bodies, okay? And that's another thing that I'm going to show you how to do. So what I want you to do is grab your drawings from last week. This is the one that I did with you guys last week. And what I want you to also grab is, if you have a blue crayon, that would be great. Let's say you don't have a blue crayon, you could also grab a blue colored pencil. That's going to work too. And if you have any kind of other markers or things that you want to use to color your snowmen and women, that will be fine too. So go ahead, grab your stuff, and then we'll get started. So the first thing I want to show you guys is how to add dark and light value to create a shadow on the edge of your snowmen's bodies. Okay, if I look at my example from last week, this snow girl, she has on a sweater, so I am not going to shade the edge of her sweater blue, because I probably am going to color her sweater a different color. However, down here on this part of her body, I just have these sort of flower buttons, so I'm able to shade this edge and also the edge of her face. This guy has no sweaters or clothing on, so I'm able to do all three of his. This guy has on a pirate's sort of little jacket, so again, I will only be able to do his face and his the bottom part of his body, and then same for this guy who has on his fancy jacket. We'll do the face and this part. So shading 101. What you can do is, if you're not sure, you can even just flip your piece of paper over and just roughly draw a circle. And again, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Okay? So if you draw it in pencil, and just draw it nice and lightly. And what we're going to do is, when we think about so we drew the circle, but if this circle was a sphere, right, if it was round, it would come up and around, and then it would go back and around away from us, all right? And if we think about that, the area that is curved up towards us is the lightest. But then as the object curves back away from us, the edge is away from the light, so there is a shadow, okay? And so this is more of like a 4th or a 5th grade concept, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce it sort of just on a very basic level to you guys, as something that you could sort of start to think about with your artwork when you want to make a shape look more like a 3D form. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to take our blue crayon or our colored pencil, and what I'm going to do is, along this edge here, I'm just going to move my crayon back and forth. And I'm moving it back and forth left to right, not up and down. Okay? And I'm just going back and forth, and then as I get down towards the bottom of the circle, I'm just going to kind of taper it off a little bit, okay? So I went back and forth, and my line was not very wide. I didn't go back and forth very far, so the width of this little dark shadow that I created is not very, very wide. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to where I started, but this time when I go back and forth, left to right, I am not going to press as hard as I did last time. So this time I am pressing a lot lighter as I kind of curve around here. So you can see I kind of went from dark to light. And what you can even do is you can kind of sort of color over where the two meet to kind of blend it. And then as I go out, just like that. So you can kind of practice that on the back of your piece of paper. If you do it in pencil and crayon, we won't be able to see it through to the other side. So when you feel comfortable, what you're going to do is we're going to do it on the bodies of our snow men and women. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do it on the top part of this head here. So I'm just going back and forth, right along that edge. I can't do up in here because it's under the hat. And then right next to it, I'm going back and forth. But this time I'm going back and forth a little bit more. I'm going a little bit more to the left and the right, but a lot later. Okay? And then I'm just going to kind of blend that in there. And voila, there we go. Okay? Then I'm going to start down here, again, sort of up where this curve is, and I'm just going left and right, pushing nice and hard to get a dark value. And then I hit the edge of the paper, so I'm going to stop. And then same thing, I'm going to go back and forth, but this time I'm going to go back and forth a little bit wider, just kind of along that curve, but a lot lighter. I'm barely pressing on my crayon. Okay, and then I might just want to kind of blend where they kind of overlap. Okay, and there we go. I'll demonstrate it one more time on this full guy, and then I'm going to let you guys practice it on your own snowmen. In fact, what I might do is I will demonstrate it with the colored pencil in case you have the colored pencil. So what we're going to do is we will do the exact same thing, where I'm going to go back and forth with the colored pencil, but this time it's the colored pencil instead of my crayon, left and right, and then again next to that line I'm going back and forth, left and right, but this time I'm not really pressing very hard on my colored pencil. So now I'm getting a much lighter value. And then I'm just kind of feathering it off into nothing. All right. Then for the next part, I'll start up here, kind of up around the scarf. And same thing, I'm going to go back and forth, left to right, kind of right and around in there. And then same thing, I'm just going to go left to right. It's kind of, you're imagining that now this is kind of coming up and around, and as it goes up it's going to get much lighter because light is going to be reflecting off the highest part of the sphere. Okay, there's that piece, and then I'm going to go down to this one. I'm just going to go back and forth, just a little bit, pressing nice and hard, getting a dark value with my colored pencil, and then I'm going to go back and forth, just using the edge of my pencil, but this time I'm not pressing very hard at all. And there we go. So that is how you create a shadow on the edges of your snowman. So what I want you to do now is you can go ahead and finish adding shadows to the edges of the rest of your snowman. Alright guys, now the next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is snowflakes. If you wanted to draw fancier snowflakes, again, you could turn your piece of paper over and we could practice. And snowflakes are symmetrical, so what you're going to draw first is sort of an X marks the spot, and then we're going to draw a horizontal line through that X. And then what we're going to do is, actually Mrs. Herbay is going to change angle to make these shapes a little bit more even. Okay, so then what we're going to do is, so there's my X and one across the middle. Then what we're going to do is, let's say I want to jazz this up a little bit. Well, if I add a circle to the end of this point, I'm going to add a circle to the end of all the other points. All right? Let's say I put a little mountain in between these 2 points. Then I'm going to put a little mountain in between those ones, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Okay? Maybe, let's say I want to put 2 diagonal lines down like that. Then I have to do it here. I'll turn it there. Turn it there. And there. Okay? Then maybe I want a little line to come out from the little point that's there. There we go. Maybe I want to put a V on the end of that line. Maybe I want to put a V on the end of these little circles. So you guys get the idea. And now I'm getting something that looks more intricate, like a 6-pointed snowflake. Okay? So that's how you do those. If you want to make it smaller, obviously you would just make your X's smaller, and now the snowflake would be smaller. If it's going to be really far off in the distance, you can just kind of do that, and then maybe just add a few little small details like that, because as it goes back away, we won't see as many details. So that's snowflakes. Okay. So the snowflakes can go on to our paper. So if I wanted to put, like I talked to you guys about, I could draw a little one up in here as I work my way down this time. It's a little bigger there, and then a little bigger still. And then I can go ahead and add my details. So I'm going to draw that line diagonally. And okay, so there is a fancy snowflake. Let's say I wanted to add trees. So what I would do first is I'm going to draw a vertical line that's going towards the center of my paper. Then what I'm going to do is very close to it, I'm going to start another diagonal line. But as that diagonal line slowly gets to the edge, it's going to go a little, it's starting close and then it's getting further and further away. So there's my trunk, okay? If this was the top of my tree, the branches at the top of the tree would be very short and small. And then as I work my way down, the branches are going to get longer. Till down here, the branches would be much longer and a little bit wider, a little bit thicker, okay? If it was a pine tree, I would do, I'm just gonna still do my vertical line down. I'm gonna start really close up here, and then I'm just gonna gradually go out, okay? And then it would start with little small pine needles, and then as I come down, they're going to get longer, like that, okay? I'm trying to think what else I wanted to show you for the background. Oh, if you wanted to draw clouds in the sky closer to the middle are going to, they're going to kind of go around in a circle. They're going to be bigger or smaller up in here. And then as I work my way down, the clouds are going to be bigger. Okay? If you wanted it to be a sunny day, you could put the sun shining in the sky here up in the middle with the sun rays coming out. If you wanted more of a sunset, you could have the sun lower in the sky. So I could draw the sun here. And then I could add other colors. And you could have some of those colors from the sunset kind of curving around over here too, if you wanted it to be like that. And they could be shining over in here too. So I think that's all for the background. And then last but not least, you can either use colored pencils or if you have markers, you can also use those to color in the outfits of your snow people. I used Sharpie for these details because it was nice and vibrant. If you happened to want to color the clothing with Sharpie, then what you could do is you could take your black colored pencil and sort of put a shadow over top of the Sharpie coloring. So I'm doing that sort of dark, and then now I'm going back and just going back and forth lightly to kind of add a shadow to the clothing to make it look a little more 3D. You can also do it, I did it up here with this hat where I took I colored it a little bit darker along the edge of the hat, and then it was lighter in here. I used a colored pencil, and I did the same here with the the Pirates shirt where I colored it a darker yellow or a lighter yellow, and then you could even go back with a little bit of a darker yellow. Around the edge. And then kind of blend it in. Okay. Oh, the one last thing, the snow. If you did little snow, so I would draw tiny little circles up here, but as the circles come down, they're going to get bigger and bigger. And again, if you wanted to have a lot of snow, you could just draw, if you didn't want to draw the fancy snowflakes, you could draw a lot of circles if it was a snowstorm. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll look forward to our check-in on Friday.